Maya Rodriguez stepped off the transport ship and onto the metal deck of Kepler Station. The massive space station stretched out in all directions around her. She had never seen anything so huge in her life. The walls were made of some kind of blue metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered every surface. Other human cadets walked beside her. Katie Murphy carried her bag over one shoulder. Lisa Chang looked around with wide eyes, just like Maya did. They were the first humans ever to attend the Galactic Military Academy. Maya felt proud, but also scared. Alien beings moved through the corridors around them. The Zephyrians were tall and covered in gray scales. They had 4 arms and walked with heavy steps. Their eyes were bright yellow and seemed to look right through the humans. The Valdorians were thinner, with blue skin and large heads. They spoke in soft voices, but Maya could tell they were talking about the humans. A Zephyrian officer approached a group of human cadets. He was bigger than the others, with scars across his face and arms. His uniform had many medals on it. Maya knew this had to be someone important. The alien officer stopped in front of them. He looked down at each human cadet with those yellow eyes. Maya felt very small next to him. She was used to being tough. Back on Earth she had been a Marine. She had fought in battles and never backed down from a fight. But this alien made her feel like a child. The officer spoke in a deep voice that echoed off the metal walls. His words came out slowly, as if he was not used to speaking the human language. "Commander, that Svar is my name. I will be training you humans while you are here. I have trained the best warriors in the galaxy. Most of them were worthy of my time. You humans are here because your government made a deal with ours. I did not agree with this deal." Maya felt her face get hot. She wanted to say something back, but knew she should stay quiet. The other human cadets shifted on their feet. None of them looked happy about what the commander had said. The commander continued speaking. "You will follow the same rules as every other cadet here. You will train the same way. You will be tested the same way. But I do not expect you to succeed. Your species is new to space travel. You have no experience fighting real wars against real enemies. You know nothing about the weapons we use, or the tactics we have learned over thousands of years." A group of alien cadets had gathered nearby to watch. Maya could see Zephyrians and Valdorians standing together. They whispered to each other and pointed at the humans. Some of them were laughing. Maya felt her hands make fists at her sides. Commander Thexvar noticed the alien cadets watching. He spoke louder so they could all hear him. "These humans think they can learn what takes our species decades to master. They think their primitive fighting methods will work against enemies who have conquered entire star systems. We shall see how wrong they are." The commander turned and walked away. His heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The alien cadets followed him but kept looking back at the humans. Maya heard some of them still laughing. A Valdorian cadet approached the group of humans. She was shorter than the others with light blue skin and silver eyes. She wore the same uniform as all the other cadets, but hers looked newer and cleaner. "I am Lysith. I will be showing you to your quarters. Please, follow me." Maya picked up her bag and walked behind the Valdorian. The other humans came too. They moved through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Everything was so clean and perfect. Maya thought about her old barracks on Earth. They had been old and worn, but they felt like home. This place felt cold. Lysaeth stopped at a door marked with alien symbols. She touched a panel next to the door and it slid open. Inside was a room with 2 beds and some basic furniture. Everything was made of the same blue metal as the corridors. "You will share this room with me. I requested a human roommate because I wanted to study your species. I am very interested in learning about primitive cultures." Maya felt that anger rising in her chest again. She put her bag down on one of the beds and looked at the Valdorian. The alien seemed to think she was being kind, but her words felt like insults. I know this must be very different from what you are used to on your home planet. Do not worry if you do not understand how things work here. I can explain everything to you. The technology might seem very advanced, but I will help you learn to use the basic functions. The Valdorian showed Maya how to use the wall panel that controlled the lights and temperature. She explained how the food dispensers worked and where the washing facilities were located. She spoke slowly and used simple words, as if Maya might not understand. Maya had studied alien languages before coming to the academy. She had learned basic Zephyrian and Valdorian phrases. She understood much more than Lysith thought she did. But she decided to stay quiet and let the alien think what she wanted. That evening, Maya met with the other human cadets in the common area. Katie looked tired and frustrated. Lisa seemed overwhelmed by everything around them. The other humans all had similar stories. Their alien roommates treated them like children. The alien cadets in their classes acted like the humans did, not belong there. Maya thought about her training back on Earth. She had learned to fight in jungles and deserts. She had used weapons that were simple but effective. She had worked with teams of humans who trusted each other completely. Here everything was different. The weapons used energy instead of bullets. The tactics were based on rules she had never heard of. The other cadets had been training this way their whole lives. But Maya had not become a Marine by giving up when things got hard. She had earned her place through determination and hard work. She would do the same thing here. The next morning came too early. A loud sound filled the corridors and woke all the cadets. Maya got dressed quickly and followed Lysith to the training area. It was a huge room with high ceilings and equipment she did not recognize. Commander Vexvar stood in the center of the room. He wore different clothes now. Instead of his uniform, he had on what looked like armor. It was black and covered with weapons. Maya could see energy packs and devices she could not identify. The commander looked at all the cadets gathered around him. His yellow eyes stopped on each human for a long moment. Maya felt like he was deciding whether they were worth his time. Today you will learn the basics of energy, weapon, combat. These weapons are more advanced than anything your species has ever created. They require skill and training to use properly. I do not expect the humans to master them quickly. The commander picked up a weapon from a table nearby. It looked like a rifle, but was made of silver metal and had no visible trigger. Blue lights ran along its sides. This is a plasma rifle. It fires concentrated energy that can destroy most forms of armor. The power settings can be adjusted based on your target. Watch carefully. Commander Vexvar aimed the weapon at a target across the room. Maya saw his fingers move across panels on the side of the rifle. A bright blue beam shot out and hit the target dead center. The target melted and fell to the floor down. You will try. Humans first. Maya stepped forward with the other human cadets. The commander handed the plasma rifle to Katie. She looked at it like it might explode in her hands. Maya could see her trying to figure out how it worked. Katie aimed at a target and touched what she thought was the firing control. Nothing happened. She tried again. Still nothing. The alien cadets started to whisper and laugh. Commander Dexvar shook his head, as I expected. Your species lacks the mental capacity to operate advanced technology. Perhaps you should return to your primitive projectile weapons. Maya felt her anger building again. She knew Katie was smart and capable. The problem was not with Katie. The problem was that no one had properly explained how the weapon worked. Maya watched as each human cadet tried to use the plasma rifle. None of them could make it work properly. The alien cadets found this very amusing. Commander Dexvar looked pleased that his predictions were coming true, when it was Maya's turn. She took the weapon and examined it carefully. She could see the panels the commander had touched. She could see how his fingers had moved. She tried to copy what she had observed. The weapon made a soft humming sound. Maya aimed at a target and pressed what she hoped was the right control. A weak blue beam came out and barely reached the target. It was not a good shot, but at least the weapon had fired better than the others, but still pathetic. You humans will need much more training before you are ready for real combat. I wonder if you will ever be ready. Maya handed the weapon back to the commander. She felt embarrassed and frustrated. On Earth, she had been an excellent marksman. She could hit targets that other Marines missed. But here she felt clumsy and stupid. The training session continued for several hours. The alien cadets performed much better with the weapons. They seemed to understand how everything worked without much explanation. Maya watched them carefully and tried to learn from what she saw. By the end of the day, Maya was exhausted. Her body hurt from trying to use equipment that did not fit her properly. Her mind was tired from trying to understand concepts that were completely foreign to her. Back in her room, Lysith tried to be encouraging. Do not feel bad about your performance today. It takes time to learn these skills. Perhaps in a few months, you will be able to use the basic weapons. Maya lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about her family back. The next few weeks were the hardest of Maya's life. Commander Vexvar seemed to take special pleasure in making things difficult for the human cadets. Every day brought new challenges that felt impossible to overcome. During weapons training, the commander would give the alien cadets detailed instructions about how to use each device. When it came time for the humans to try, he would simply hand them the weapons and tell them to figure it out themselves. Maya watched the other cadets carefully, trying to learn from their movements and techniques. The plasma rifles were just the beginning. There were energy swords that could cut through almost any material. There were shield generators that created barriers of pure energy. There were grenades that could create small black holes. Each weapon was more advanced than anything humans had ever created. Maya spent her free time in the training rooms practicing with the basic equipment. Lysith would sometimes help her, but the Valdorians seemed to think Maya was making things harder than they needed to be. She would explain simple concepts over and over, as if Maya could not understand them the first time. The combat simulations were even worse than the weapons training. Commander Vexvar would create scenarios where the cadets had to work together to complete missions. The alien cadets moved like they had been doing this their whole lives. They communicated using hand signals Maya did not recognize. They used tactics that seemed to come naturally to them. Maya and the other human cadets were always put on teams with aliens who did not want them there. The Zephyrian cadets would ignore human suggestions and make their own plans. The cadets would treat humans like they were too stupid to understand the mission objectives. During one simulation, Maya was assigned to a team with 3 Zephyrian cadets. Their mission was to capture an enemy stronghold defended by automated weapons systems. The Zephyrians immediately took charge and assigned Maya to stay behind and guard their escape route. Maya knew this was just a way to keep her out of the real action. She had studied the mission briefing and had ideas about how they could approach the target. But when she tried to speak up, the team leader cut her off. Humans do not understand advanced tactical operations. Stay here and try not to get in our way. Maya watched as the 3 Zephyrians approached the stronghold using a direct assault strategy. It was exactly what the automated defenses were designed to counter. Within minutes, all 3 aliens were eliminated by the enemy weapon systems. The mission was a complete failure. After the simulation, Commander Vexvar gathered all the cadets together. He looked directly at Maya as he spoke. This failure demonstrates why humans are not ready for real military operations. Your primitive thinking and lack of coordination made it impossible for your team to succeed. Perhaps you should consider returning to your home planet before you cause more problems. Maya felt her face burning with embarrassment and anger. She knew the mission could have been successful with better planning. She had seen weaknesses in the enemy defenses that the Zephyrians had ignored. But no one wanted to listen to suggestions from a human. The other human cadets were having similar experiences. Katie had been assigned to a flight simulator exercise, but the controls were designed for alien hands. She crashed repeatedly while the alien cadets watched and laughed. Lisa was given engineering problems that required knowledge of alien technology she had never seen before. Maya began to notice that Commander Dexvar was treating the human cadets differently than everyone else. He would give them impossible tasks and then criticize them when they failed. He would ask them questions about topics they had never been taught. He would make them demonstrate skills they had not been trained to perform. During physical training, the differences became even more obvious. The Zephyrian cadets were naturally stronger and faster than humans. They could lift heavier weights and run longer distances. Commander Vexvar would have Maya compete directly against aliens who had clear physical advantages. One morning the commander announced that they would be doing hand-to-hand combat training. Maya had been looking forward to this because fighting was something she knew how to do. On Earth she had been one of the best fighters in her unit. She had won competitions against Marines who were bigger and stronger than her. The commander paired each cadet with a training partner. Maya expected to be matched with another human or maybe one of the smaller Valdorian cadets. Instead, she found herself facing Kethmer, the largest Zephyrian in their class. Kethmer was over 7 feet tall and weighed at least 300 pounds. His 4 arms were covered in muscle, and his scales looked as hard as armor. Maya was barely 5.5 feet tall and weighed less than half what the alien did. The match was completely unfair. Commander Vexvar seemed pleased with the pairing. This will be an excellent demonstration of why physical combat training is so important. Maya will learn valuable lessons about fighting opponents who are superior to her in every way. Maya stepped into the training circle with Kethmer. The alien looked down at her with something that might have been pity. Maya could hear other cadets whispering about how quickly the fight would be over. The combat rules were simple. No weapons were allowed, but all other techniques were permitted. The fight would continue until one fighter was unable to continue or surrendered. Maya had never surrendered in a fight, and she was not planning to start now. When the commander gave the signal to begin, Kethmer moved faster than Maya expected. His 4 arms came at her from different directions at once. Maya tried to dodge, but there was nowhere to go. One of his fists caught her in the ribs and lifted her off the ground. Maya hit the floor hard but rolled away before Kethmer could grab her. She had learned long ago that smaller fighters had to use speed and technique against larger opponents. She could not match the alien's strength, but she might be able to use his size against him. Kethmer came at her again, swinging all 4 arms in wide arcs. Maya ducked under his attacks and tried to get behind him. She managed to land a few hits on his legs and back, but her punches seemed to have no effect on his thick scales. The alien grabbed Maya with 2 of his arms and lifted her into the air. She could feel his grip crushing her ribs. Maya drove her elbow into his face as hard as she could. Kethmer roared and threw her across the training circle. Maya crashed into the wall and felt something crack in her shoulder. Pain shot through her body, but she forced herself to stand up. Around the circle, alien cadets were cheering for Kethmer. Some of them were making bets about how long Maya would last. Commander Vexvar called out from the side of the circle. Perhaps the human would like to surrender now and save herself further. Embarrassment, Maya wiped blood from her mouth and shook her head. She had been hurt worse than this before. On Earth she had fought through broken bones and torn muscles. She would not give up now, in front of all these aliens who thought humans were weak. Kethmer approached more cautiously this time. He had learned that Maya could hurt him even if her attacks were not very effective. Maya tried to think of a strategy that might give her a chance to win. She remembered a technique her instructor on Earth had taught her. Sometimes the best way to beat a stronger opponent was to let them beat themselves. Maya waited for Kethmer to attack and then moved at the last second. The alien stumbled forward and Maya grabbed one of his arms. Using Kethmer's own momentum, Maya threw him toward the wall of the training circle. The alien hit hard, but recovered quickly. He was angry now, and came at Maya with all four arms swinging. Wildly, Maya managed to avoid most of his attacks, but one fist caught her in the head. Stars exploded behind her eyes, and she fell to the ground. Kethmer grabbed her with all four arms and began to squeeze. Maya felt her consciousness slipping away. The pain in her ribs was unbearable, and she could not breathe. She heard Commander Vexvar telling her to surrender. She heard alien cadets laughing and making jokes about human weakness. But Maya also heard something else. She heard Katie and Lisa and the other human cadets calling her name. They were telling her not to give up. They believed in her even when she did not believe in herself. Maya found strength she did not know she had. She drove her knee into Kethmer's stomach as hard as she could. The alien loosened his grip, just enough for Maya to break free. She rolled away and struggled to her feet. Kethmer was breathing hard now. The long fight was starting to tire him out. Maya was hurt badly, but she was used to fighting through pain. She had learned to ignore her body's signals and keep going when others would quit. The fight continued, for what felt like hours. Maya could not hurt Kethmer enough to stop him, but she would not let him finish her either. She dodged and weaved and struck back whenever she could. Her body was covered in bruises and cuts, but she kept fighting. Finally, Kethmer made a mistake. He swung too hard with all four arms and lost his balance. Maya saw her chance and tackled him around the legs. The alien fell backward and hit his head on the floor of the training circle. Kethmer did not get up. Maya stood over him, breathing hard and waiting to see if he would continue fighting. The alien was unconscious and could not defend himself anymore. According to the rules, Maya had won the fight. The training area was completely silent. No one seemed to believe what they had just seen. A small human had defeated one of the strongest Zephyrian cadets in single combat. It should have been impossible. Commander Vexvar looked angry and embarrassed. He had expected Maya to be quickly defeated and humiliated. Instead, she had shown courage and determination that impressed even the alien cadets who had been laughing at her. Maya collapsed to her knees as the pain finally overwhelmed her. She had won the fight, but paid a heavy price for victory. Her shoulder was definitely broken, and she suspected several ribs were cracked. Her face was swollen and covered in blood. Medical personnel rushed into the training circle and began treating both fighters. Maya was loaded onto a stretcher and taken to the station's medical facility. As they carried her away, she could see alien cadets looking at her with something that might have been respect in the medical bay. Maya lay on a bed while alien doctors treated her injuries. They seemed surprised that a human had lasted so long against a Zephyrian in combat. They spoke to each other in their own language, but Maya could tell they were talking about her. Later that day, Lysith came to visit her. The Valdorian looked concerned and maybe a little guilty. She sat down next to Maya's bed and spoke more quietly than usual. I watched your fight today. I did not think you would be able to continue for so long. Most species would have surrendered much earlier. Maya looked at her roommate and tried to smile despite her swollen face. She was starting to realize that maybe the aliens did not understand humans as well as they thought they did. They saw human weakness, but they did not see human strength. Tomorrow Maya would be back in training if the doctors would let her. She would face more challenges and more discrimination. Commander Vexvar would probably be even harder on the human cadets after what had happened today. But something had changed during that fight. Maya had proven to herself and to others that humans would not give up easily. They might not be the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but they had something that could not be easily measured or defeated. Maya closed her eyes and tried to rest. Her body hurt everywhere, but her spirit felt stronger than ever. The real test was still coming, and she intended to be ready for it. Maya spent 3 days in the medical bay recovering from her fight with Kethmer. The alien doctors were amazed at how quickly humans could heal from serious injuries. They said most species would need weeks to recover from the damage she had sustained. During her recovery, Maya had time to think about everything that had happened since arriving at the academy. She realized she had been trying to fight like an alien instead of fighting like a human. She had been using their weapons and their tactics and their strategies. No wonder she was failing. On Earth, Maya had been successful because she fought like a human. She used creativity and adaptation and unconventional thinking. She worked with her team in ways that confused and surprised her enemies. She needed to start doing the same thing here. When Maya returned to training, she began approaching everything differently. Instead of trying to master alien weapons the way aliens did, she started experimenting with new techniques. She held the plasma rifle in ways that felt natural to her human hands. She adjusted the power settings in combinations the aliens had never tried. During one weapons exercise, Maya discovered that she could fire the plasma rifle much faster by using a technique from Earth. Instead of aiming carefully for each shot like the aliens, she used rapid-fire tactics that overwhelmed the target's defenses. Her accuracy was lower, but her overall effectiveness was much higher. Commander Vexvar was not pleased with Maya's unconventional approach. He criticized her for not following proper procedures. He said her methods were sloppy and undisciplined, but Maya noticed that her scores were improving while his criticism was getting louder. Maya began sharing her discoveries with Katie and Lisa and the other human cadets. She taught them to think like humans instead of trying to copy alien behaviors. Soon, all the human cadets were performing better in their training exercises. Katie adapted human pilot techniques to the alien flight simulators. Instead of following the standard approach patterns she used aggressive maneuvers that confused the computer opponents. Her success rate improved dramatically and other cadets began asking how she was doing it. Lisa applied human engineering principles to alien technology problems. She found ways to combine different systems that the aliens had never considered. Her solutions were often simpler and more efficient than the traditional methods. The alien cadets began to notice that the humans were improving rapidly. Some of them seemed impressed, while others appeared threatened by human success. Maya could see them whispering among themselves and pointing at the human cadets. Lysaeth was one of the aliens who seemed genuinely interested in human methods. She asked Maya to explain her techniques and why they worked so well. Maya tried to describe human adaptability, but found it difficult to put into words. Humans do not always follow rules the same way other species do. We try many different approaches until we find something that works. We change our methods based on the situation instead of using the same strategy every time. Lysaeth found this concept fascinating, but also confusing. Valdorian society was built on following established procedures and perfecting traditional techniques. The idea of constantly changing and adapting was foreign to her way of thinking. During team exercises, Maya began demonstrating human tactics that amazed the alien cadets. In one simulation, the team had to infiltrate an enemy base without being detected. The standard approach was to use advanced stealth technology and follow predetermined routes. Maya suggested a different strategy. Instead of trying to avoid all the enemy sensors, they would create distractions in multiple locations. While the enemy was responding to false alarms, the team could slip through areas that were temporarily unguarded. The alien cadets were skeptical, but agreed to try Maya's plan. The mission was completed in half the expected time, with no casualties. The enemy never figured out how the team had penetrated their defenses. Commander Vexvar was forced to acknowledge the success, but he was clearly unhappy about it. He said the humans had gotten lucky, and their methods would not work against real enemies. Maya could see that her success was making him angry and desperate. The commander began assigning even more difficult challenges to the human cadets. He created scenarios that seemed designed to make them fail. But instead of discouraging the humans, these challenges motivated them to work even harder. Maya and her team were given a mission that was supposedly impossible. They had to defend a position against an enemy force that outnumbered them 10-1. The alien cadets, who had attempted this scenario before, had all failed within minutes. Maya studied the battle parameters and realized the standard defensive tactics would never work. The enemy had too many advantages in numbers and firepower. She needed to find a way to change the rules of engagement. Instead of trying to hold a fixed position, Maya suggested that her team use mobile defense tactics. They would strike at the enemy from unexpected directions, and then disappear before the enemy could respond. They would make the enemy think they were fighting a much larger force. The other human cadets were willing to try Maya's plan, but the alien members of their team were resistant. They had been trained to follow established military doctrine, and Maya's ideas seemed too risky and unconventional. Maya convinced them to give her strategy a chance by pointing out that the conventional approach had never worked. If they were going to fail anyway, they might as well try something different. The alien cadets reluctantly agreed to follow her lead. The simulation began with the enemy advancing in standard formation toward their defensive position. Instead of meeting them head-on, Maya's team scattered and took up hidden positions around the battlefield. When the enemy reached the defensive line, they found it empty. Maya coordinated her team using hand signals and simple communication codes. They struck at the enemy flanks and rear guard, causing confusion and panic. The enemy forces began turning to face threats from multiple directions at once. As the enemy tried to reorganize, Maya led her team in a series of hit-and-run attacks. They would appear suddenly, inflict maximum damage, and then vanish before the enemy could counterattack. The alien members of her team began to understand her strategy and started improvising their own tactics. The simulation continued for over an hour, with Maya's team gradually wearing down the superior enemy force. They used the terrain to their advantage and exploited every weakness in the enemy formation. By the end of the exercise, they had achieved a complete victory against impossible odds. The other cadets who had been watching the simulation were stunned. Many of them had attempted the same scenario and failed badly. Maya had not only succeeded, but made it look easy. Even some of the instructors seemed impressed by what they had witnessed. Commander Vexvar was furious. He accused Maya of cheating and demanded to review the simulation data. When the review showed that all her tactics were legal, he claimed the simulation had malfunctioned. He ordered the exercise to be repeated with different parameters. Maya accepted the challenge gladly. She was confident that human adaptability could overcome any scenario the commander created. The second simulation was even more difficult than the first, but Maya and her team achieved another decisive victory. Word of the human success began spreading throughout the academy. Cadets from other classes came to watch Maya and her team in action. Some of the alien instructors started asking questions about human military history and tactics. Maya realized that she was becoming something she had never expected to be. She was not just representing humanity at the academy. She was teaching aliens that humans had valuable knowledge and skills that could benefit everyone. The alien cadets in Maya's class began treating the humans differently. Instead of dismissing human suggestions, they started listening and asking questions. Some of them even requested to be assigned to teams with human cadets. Lysith was fascinated by the changes she was seeing in Maya and the other humans. She spent hours asking questions about human society and military traditions. She wanted to understand where human creativity and adaptability came from. Maya tried to explain that humans had evolved on a planet where survival required constant adaptation. Earth had many different environments and climates that forced humans to develop flexible thinking and problem-solving skills. Humans learned to work together and share knowledge because cooperation was essential for survival. The Valdorian found these concepts intriguing but difficult to fully grasp. Her species had evolved on a stable world where the environment rarely changed. They had developed advanced technology and sophisticated social structures, but they had less experience with rapid adaptation. As the weeks passed, Maya felt more confident about her place at the academy. She was still behind the alien cadets in some areas, but her unique human perspective was proving valuable in ways she had never imagined. She began to believe that humans might actually belong among the stars after all. But Maya knew that Commander Vexfar was not finished with her yet. His hostility toward the human cadets had only grown stronger as their performance improved. She could see him planning something that would test human resolve in ways they had never been tested before. Maya was ready for whatever challenge came next. She had learned to fight like a human again, and that made all the difference. The real test was still ahead, but she felt prepared to face it with confidence and determination. The human cadets had found their strength, and now it was time to show the galaxy what they could really do. Commander Vexfar called all the cadets together for a special announcement. Maya could see the anger in his yellow eyes as he looked at the human cadets. Their recent success had embarrassed him in front of the other instructors, and he was planning something to restore his authority. The commander stood in the center of the main training hall. His black armor reflected the blue lights from the walls. Every cadet in the academy was present, including the advanced classes who rarely attended. Basic training sessions. Today you will face your final examination. This test will determine which of you are worthy to graduate from this academy and serve in the Galactic Fleet. Those who fail will be sent home in disgrace. Maya felt her heart start beating faster. She had known this moment would come, but she had hoped for more time to prepare. The human cadets had been improving rapidly, but they were still behind the alien cadets in many areas. The commander activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of a planetary system. Maya could see a small moon orbiting a gas giant. The moon was covered in mountains and deep valleys with several military installations scattered across its surface. This is Zarian Prime. 200 years ago, a small Zephyrian garrison defended this moon against a massive enemy invasion. The defenders were outnumbered 50-1, but they held their position for 3 months until reinforcements arrived. It is considered one of the greatest defensive victories in galactic military history. Maya studied the tactical display carefully. She could see the enemy approach routes and the defensive positions. The battle had been won through superior knowledge of the terrain and careful use of limited resources. It was exactly the kind of challenge that required creative thinking. You will be assigned roles as the defending garrison. Your mission is to hold the main installation for as long as possible against overwhelming enemy forces. The simulation will test everything you have learned about weapons, tactics, teamwork, and leadership. Commander Vexfar paused and looked directly at Maya and the other human cadets. His expression made it clear that he expected them to fail badly. The humans will be assigned the most critical defensive positions. If they cannot perform adequately, the entire exercise will fail. Perhaps this will finally demonstrate why your species is not ready for real military service. Maya felt the familiar anger building inside her, but she forced herself to stay calm. The commander was trying to set the humans up for failure, but she was not going to let that happen. She had studied enough military history to recognize the tactical situation they would be facing. The cadets were divided into teams and assigned different sections of the defensive perimeter. Maya found herself in command of the central stronghold, which was the most important position on the battlefield. If her section fell, the entire defense would collapse. Katie was assigned to coordinate air defense systems. Lisa was put in charge of the engineering units that maintained the defensive equipment. The other human cadets were scattered throughout the command structure in positions where their failure would have maximum impact. Maya gathered her team together to plan their defense strategy. She had been assigned a mix of human and alien cadets, including several Zephyrians who clearly resented being under human command. She needed to find a way to unite them into an effective fighting force. The simulation parameters showed that the enemy would attack in 3 waves, spread over several hours. The first wave would test the outer defenses. The second wave would try to break through the main perimeter. The third wave would be an all-out assault designed to overwhelm any remaining defenders. Maya looked at the tactical display and began forming a plan. The standard Zephyrian defensive doctrine called for meeting each enemy attack with maximum firepower. The defenders would hold fixed positions and try to destroy as many attackers as possible before being overrun, but Maya could see weaknesses in this approach. The enemy had too many advantages in numbers and equipment. A direct confrontation would result in quick defeat, just as it had for previous cadet teams who had attempted this scenario. Maya began explaining her alternative strategy to her team. Instead of trying to stop every enemy attack, they would focus on disrupting enemy coordination and supply lines. They would make the enemy work harder for every advance and pay a higher price for every victory. The Zephyrian cadets in her team were skeptical of Maya's plan. They had been trained to believe that direct confrontation was the only honorable way to fight. Retreating, or using deception tactics, was considered cowardly by their military culture. Maya had to convince them that winning was more important than following traditional honor codes. She pointed out that the original defenders of Zarian Prime had used similar tactics to achieve their historic victory. Sometimes the best way to serve honor was to survive and continue fighting. Gradually, the alien cadets began to accept Maya's leadership. They could see that her unconventional thinking had worked in previous exercises. They were willing to try her methods if it meant achieving success in the final examination. The simulation began with enemy scouts probing the outer defenses. Maya coordinated her team's response, using communication techniques she had learned from human military training. Instead of rigid command structures, she encouraged initiative and adaptation at every level. The first enemy wave attacked exactly as predicted. Maya allowed them to penetrate the outer defensive line but made sure they paid a heavy price for every meter of ground gained. Her teams fell back in good order while inflicting maximum casualties on the advancing enemy. The alien instructors, watching the simulation, seemed surprised by Maya's tactics. They were used to seeing cadets try to hold every position until they were overwhelmed. Maya's strategy of trading space for time was unfamiliar to them. Commander Vexvar was clearly unhappy with what he was seeing. He had expected the human-commanded teams to collapse quickly under enemy pressure. Instead, they were conducting an organized fighting withdrawal that was bleeding the enemy forces white. The second enemy wave was larger and better coordinated than the first. Maya had anticipated this and prepared special surprises for the attackers. Her engineering teams had prepared hidden explosive charges along the likely enemy advance routes. When the enemy reached the predetermined positions, Maya triggered the explosives simultaneously. Entire enemy formations were destroyed in seconds. The survivors were confused and disorganized, making them easy targets for her defensive teams. Katie coordinated airstrikes against enemy reinforcements trying to reach the battle zone. She used hit-and-run tactics that prevented the enemy from building up overwhelming superiority at any single point. Her pilots struck hard and disappeared before enemy air defenses could respond effectively. Lisa kept the defensive systems running at peak efficiency despite the constant enemy bombardment. She rotated damaged equipment out of service and brought backup systems online seamlessly. Her engineering teams repaired battle damage faster than the enemy could inflict it. The simulation continued for hours with Maya and her teams adapting to each new enemy tactic. They used the terrain to their advantage and exploited every weakness in the enemy formation. The enemy forces were taking massive casualties while making minimal progress. By the time the third enemy wave attacked, the invaders had lost most of their initial numerical advantage. Maya had preserved most of her defensive strength, while the enemy was exhausted and demoralized. The final assault was beaten back with relative ease. When the simulation ended, Maya and her teams had achieved something unprecedented. They had not only held their defensive positions, but actually defeated the entire enemy invasion force. The simulation computers showed that over 90% of the attacking forces had been eliminated. The training hall was completely silent as the results were displayed. Previous cadet teams had typically lasted less than an hour before being overwhelmed. Maya and her teams had fought for over 6 hours and achieved total victory. Commander Vexvar stared at the simulation results in disbelief. He demanded that the computers be checked for malfunctions. When the technical staff confirmed that everything had operated perfectly, he accused Maya of somehow cheating or manipulating the system. Maya stood calmly at attention while the commander ranted about the impossibility of what had just happened. She could see other instructors examining the simulation data and discussing the tactics her teams had used. Some of them seemed genuinely impressed by the human approach to warfare. The alien cadets, who had fought under Maya's command, were amazed by what they had accomplished together. Many of them had never experienced such a decisive victory in any simulation exercise. They began to understand that human tactical thinking offered valuable alternatives to traditional military doctrine. Lysith approached Maya after the exercise and congratulated her on the remarkable achievement. The Valdorian seemed almost awed by what she had witnessed. She said she was beginning to realize that human military capabilities had been seriously underestimated by the galactic community. But Maya knew that Commander Vexvar was not finished with her yet. The successful completion of the final examination had made him more desperate and dangerous than ever. She could see the hatred in his eyes as he looked at the human cadets who had exceeded all his expectations. Maya was ready for whatever came next. She had proven that humans could not only survive in the galactic military, but actually excel at it. The hardest test was still ahead, but she felt confident that human determination and creativity would see them through. The confrontation that would determine the future of human participation in galactic affairs was about to begin, and Maya intended to be ready for it. The day after the simulation commander Vexvar called Maya to his office. She walked through the corridors of the academy, knowing that this meeting would determine her future and possibly the future of all human cadets at the school. The commander's office was filled with weapons and military awards from his long career. Pictures on the walls showed him leading Zephyrian forces in battles across the galaxy. Maya could see that he was a decorated warrior who had earned respect through years of service. Commander Vexvar did not invite Maya to sit down. He stood behind his desk and glared at her with those yellow eyes that seemed to burn with anger and frustration. Maya remained at attention and waited for him to speak. Your performance yesterday was unacceptable. No cadet team has ever achieved results like that in the Zarian Prime simulation. The only explanation is that you somehow gained access to classified information about the exercise parameters. Maya kept her expression neutral, despite the accusation. She had expected the commander to question her success, but she had not anticipated him accusing her of cheating. She knew that any response she made would only make him angrier. The commander continued his accusations in a voice that grew louder with each sentence. He claimed that Maya had corrupted the other human cadets and turned them against proper military discipline. He said that human tactics were dangerous and would get people killed in real combat situations. Maya listened to his rant without responding. She could see that the commander was losing control of his emotions. His professional mask was slipping to reveal the xenophobic hatred that had been hidden underneath all along. Finally, Commander Vexvar ran out of accusations and demands. He stood breathing heavily while waiting for Maya to defend herself. The office was completely silent except for the hum of the stations. Life support systems. Maya remained at attention and said nothing. She knew that anything she said would only provide more ammunition for the commander's attacks. Sometimes the best response was no response at all. The silence seemed to enrage Commander Vexvar even more. He began shouting about human arrogance and stupidity. He said that humans were primitive savages who had no business trying to learn advanced military sciences. His voice echoed off the walls of his office. Maya continued to stand silently while the commander screamed at her. She had endured worse treatment during her training on Earth. Military instructors sometimes used verbal abuse to test the mental toughness of their students. Maya had learned to ignore the words and focus on surviving the experience, but this was different from normal military discipline. Commander HFY was not trying to make Maya a better soldier. He was trying to break her spirit and force her to quit the academy. His hatred was personal and went far beyond professional standards. The commander finally stopped shouting and walked around his desk to stand directly in front of Maya. He was so close that she could smell his alien scent and feel the heat from his body. His forearms were clenched into fists at his sides. "You will fail the final examination. I will make sure of that. Your species does not belong here, and I will prove it to everyone. By the time I am finished with you, no human will ever be accepted at this academy again." Maya looked directly into the commander's eyes and spoke, for the first time since entering his office. Her voice was calm and steady, despite the threats she had just heard. "Yes, sir. Is there anything else you need to discuss with me?" Commander HFY seemed surprised by Maya's composure. He had expected her to argue or plead, or show some sign that his threats had affected her. Instead, she remained professional and unshakable. The commander dismissed Maya with an angry gesture. She saluted properly and left his office without looking back. As she walked through the corridors, Maya knew that the final confrontation was coming soon. Commander HFY would not be satisfied until he had destroyed her career and humiliated her in front of the entire academy. Over the next few days, the commander made good on his threats. He assigned impossible tasks to the human cadets and criticized them harshly when they could not complete them perfectly. He created scenarios designed to make them fail, and then used their failures as evidence of human inadequacy. Maya and the other human cadets endured the increased harassment without complaint. They knew that showing any sign of weakness would only encourage more abuse. They supported each other and focused on completing their training despite the hostile environment. The final examination was scheduled for the end of the week. All the cadets would be tested in front of the academy. Leadership and representatives from the Galactic Fleet. Success would mean graduation and commissioning as officers. Failure would mean immediate expulsion and return to their home worlds. Maya spent her free time studying military history and tactics from across the galaxy. She paid special attention to battles where smaller forces had defeated larger ones through superior strategy and leadership. She was particularly interested in conflicts involving humans and alien species. On the day before the examination, Maya made a discovery that changed everything. While researching Zephyrian military history, she found references to a battle that was not included in the official records. The Battle of Yorktown had been fought during first contact between humans and Zephyrians over 50 years ago. Maya read the classified documents with growing understanding. A small human fleet had encountered a much larger Zephyrian invasion force near Earth. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had used unconventional tactics to achieve a stunning victory. The human commanders had used hit-and-run attacks and deception to confuse the Zephyrian fleet. They had turned the aliens' superior numbers against them by causing friendly fire incidents and communication breakdowns. The Zephyrian invasion had ended in complete disaster. Maya realized that the Battle of Yorktown was the real reason for Commander HFY's hatred of humans. His species had been humiliated by primitive humans using tactics that violated every principle of proper military conduct. The defeat had been so embarrassing that it had been classified and hidden from public knowledge. The final examination began early the next morning. All the cadets assembled in the main auditorium, which was filled with instructors and visiting officials. Maya could see representatives from dozens of different species, all watching to see how the first human cadets would perform. Commander HFY took his position at the front of the auditorium. He wore his full-dress uniform with all his medals and decorations. Maya could see that he was preparing for what he considered the most important moment of his career. The examination consisted of oral questions about military, history tactics, and leadership principles. Each cadet was called forward individually to answer questions from a panel of instructors. The questions were designed to test not just knowledge but also judgment and character. Maya watched as the alien cadets answered their questions competently, but without any particular distinction. They gave the standard responses that had been drilled into them during their training. The instructors seemed satisfied with their performance. When it was Maya's turn, she walked to the front of the auditorium and stood at attention. The entire assembly was watching her every move. She could feel the weight of their expectations and prejudices pressing down on her. Commander Vexva asked the first question. He wanted Maya to explain the proper defensive tactics for holding a fortified position against superior enemy forces. It was exactly the kind of question where he expected her to give a textbook answer that he could then criticize. Maya gave a clear and accurate response based on standard military doctrine. She explained the importance of overlapping fields of fire and coordinated defensive planning. Commander Vexvar seemed disappointed that he could not find fault with her answer. The questions continued for several minutes with Maya, demonstrating her knowledge of weapons systems, tactical principles, and military history. She answered each question correctly and professionally, despite the hostile atmosphere in the room. Finally, Commander Vexvar asked the question he had been building toward. He wanted Maya to explain why human military methods were inferior to those used by more advanced species. It was clearly a trap designed to make her criticize her own people. Maya paused before answering. She could see that this was the moment Commander Vexvar had been waiting for. He expected her to either agree with his assessment or to argue defensively and make herself look foolish. Instead, Maya stood calmly and spoke a single word in perfect Zephyrian. Her pronunciation was flawless, and her tone was respectful, but firm. Yorktown. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every Zephyrian in the auditorium went rigid with shock. Commander Vexvar turned pale, and his forearms began shaking. The word Maya had spoken was more powerful than any weapon. Maya continued speaking in flawless Zephyrian, explaining that she had studied not just alien victories but also their defeats. She described how human adaptability and unconventional thinking had confounded rigid military doctrine at the Battle of Yorktown. She pointed out that the same tactics used by humans 50 years ago had been demonstrated again in her recent simulation exercises. Human military methods were not inferior, but simply different. They offered alternatives to traditional approaches that could be valuable in the right situations. Commander Vexvar tried to interrupt, but Maya continued her presentation. She explained that true military excellence came from learning from all sources, including former enemies. The greatest warriors were those who could adapt and grow, rather than simply following established procedures. The auditorium was completely silent as Maya finished her presentation. The alien officials looked stunned by what they had heard. Many of them had never known about the Battle of Yorktown or the early human victory over Zephyrian forces. Commander Vexvar stood frozen with his mouth open. His authority had been completely undermined in front of the entire Academy leadership. The secret he had tried to hide for decades had been exposed by the human cadet he had tried to destroy. The headmaster of the Academy stepped forward to address the assembly. She was an elderly Valdorian with silver skin and wise eyes that had seen many changes in galactic affairs. Her voice carried the authority of decades of military service. Cadet Rodriguez has demonstrated exceptional knowledge and judgment. Her understanding of military history and tactical principles exceeds that of many experienced officers. She has earned the right to graduate with highest honors. Maya felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. She had not only survived the examination, but excelled at it. More importantly, she had proven that humans belonged among the stars and deserved respect from their alien allies. The graduation ceremony was held the next day. With all the surviving cadets receiving their commissions as officers in the Galactic Fleet, Maya was awarded the position of squad leader with both human and alien cadets serving under her command. Commander Vexfar was quietly reassigned to a desk job on a remote outpost. His career as a training instructor was over, and his reputation was permanently damaged. The Academy leadership could not tolerate officers who let personal prejudices interfere with their professional duties. Lysith approached Maya after the ceremony to congratulate her and say goodbye. The Valdorian had been assigned to a science vessel, while Maya would be serving on a combat ship. They would probably never see each other again, but their friendship had taught both of them valuable lessons about cooperation between species. Maya looked out at the stars through the observation deck of Kepler Station. She thought about her journey from a simple marine on Earth to an officer in the Galactic Fleet. It had been harder than anything she had ever attempted, but also more rewarding than she had ever imagined. The galaxy was a big place filled with many different species and cultures. There would always be conflicts and misunderstandings between different groups. But Maya had learned that respect could be earned through competence and determination. Humans had taken their first steps into galactic society and proven that they belonged among the stars. Maya was proud to have been part of that historic achievement and excited about the challenges that lay ahead. The future was full of possibilities, and Maya intended to make the most of every opportunity that came her way.